It's the Fulhamish podcast, your independent voice of Fulham FC, brought to you by Footwork Media. Our 9-game unbeaten run in all competitions came to an end against West Ham, but we look to get back to winning ways on Saturday at the King Power Stadium. Leicester had lost 6 on the bounce going into this one, and you couldn't shake the feeling that it would have been very Fulhamish to have lost this game. We've struggled against the whipping boys on occasion this campaign, but goals from Emile Rowe and our Dench Matador, Adama Traore, sealed a rather comfortable victory for Fulham, away no less. Away wins for Fulham are not something to be taken for granted, let me assure you. Happy days. It's always good doing a Fulhamish when you're celebrating a away win. And joining me to revel in the glory of yesterday's 3 points, I'm joined by George Rossiter. How are you doing, mate?
I'm good, mate. How are you?
I'm all right. Yeah, you were at the King Power yesterday, were you?
I was indeed. It was a good atmosphere. I was quite impressed. No, not many tourists about, and a nice amount of noise. Can't complain.
Happy days. Separating the wheat from the chaff at the King Power. Yasmin Mills is also with us. You were at the game too, I believe.
I was indeed, and I'm just over the moon that I'm actually doing a pod where we've won. So I'm feeling very, very pumped for this one today.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you on, Yasmin. Where does the King Power rate in terms of away days for you? Did you have a good day yesterday?
Had a lovely day. It was a great atmosphere. I agree with George. It was really good fun. Better than West Ham on Tuesday, 100%. But I would say it's probably somewhere mid-tier for me because sound doesn't escape. So that boosts it up a little bit, but no character. So that's proper mid.
What do you mean? They had that amazing drummer. He was amazing.
Very talented guy.
Paul, I want to talk about him later on. He made me laugh so much throughout the day.
Yeah, we've actually got a question from a listener about whether or not we should introduce a drummer to Craven Cottage, which I'm sure you guys will see you unanimously shaking your heads to that one. But the voice you just heard was Avais Malik. How you doing, man?
I'm very well, thanks, George. I would say that Leicester is one of my top tier away games, not because of the atmosphere or the journey up, but because I have family live up here. So it's such an easy one for me to get to. And it's the only reason I want them to not get relegated, so I can come up here season on season easily enough.
Yeah, I've done the King Power before, and I actually a couple of years ago, I took the supporters coach, which I hadn't done since I was a teenager. And I kind of thought, it'd be nice, we'll just sort of get chatting to Fulham fans. I was just by myself, and I mistakenly brought 4 cans of lager on with me because it's a 3-hour coach journey. I thought that'd be good, and then immediately got confiscated as I walked on. Can't have it then. No, the thought of having a tinny on the supporters coach is, it's just not happening. And I told my dad this, and he was like, "What?" It was like, back in my day, they didn't let you on unless you had beers. But our times have changed. You got some 3-word reviews for us, have you? Avais, would you mind kicking off?
Yeah. Do you know what? They were in great voice on Twitter or X last night. So I had a good look at them, and I got a few to pick. So Chris started off with about Adama time, which is always good when Adama scores. He's got a great name to bounce off. Fulham fan news with returning Burger King, which is great because who doesn't have a Burger King? Emile Smith. Oh, not Emile Smith. AK with Emile Smith Go. Which I liked because hopefully this is a launching pad for him. And a couple of Leicester-based ones, which I really like. So random Fulham stuff with King Power overruled, which is class. And then James Wilson with a really underrated one, Leicester Worry About, which I thought was a great pun on the Leicester
I like
word.
that.
Yeah. And then I wanted to shout out a really good one on the Telegram that George and I are quite frequent flyers on. Someone came up with a really good one, Did the Job. I've got to shout out Aaron Lamb for that one.
Good stuff.
Just to put that into context, there's a fella called Aaron Lamb on the Telegram, and we just absolutely set George Rossiter up with making a 3-word review just so I could give Aaron the plaudits for it.
It was a very solid performance from Fulham, I thought. Going into the game, George, obviously we had an absolute stinker on Tuesday night at the London Stadium, and you're thinking, oh no, we could really do with a big performance here, and we kind of got it. Obviously, the returning Sander Berge helped, but was it the sort of response that you were hoping for from this side?
Do you know what? I hate to... I'm not negative, but I play it down a bit. I don't think the performance was a huge improvement on the West Ham game. I thought there were spells in that West Ham game where we played far better than especially the first half yesterday at the King Power. There was a lot of people around me in the King Power in the away end saying at half time they were shocked they'd not fallen asleep in the cold because it was that boring a game of football. Second half, admittedly, much improved. I think it was more a case of doing the job. You mentioned Sander Berge, though, and I think we must come on to him more. But on a field of 22 players where there was a lot of mediocrity, he stood out massively, which is obviously even more impressive after a few games out with injury. I thought in midfield he got to every second ball before anyone else did. So good in his duels, so positive in possession. I think the most important thing is the balance he added to the midfield. You know, we've struggled all season to find that balance, whether it quite often has been Lukic, Pereira, Smith Rowe, and you can just tell such a huge difference when you've got Berge and Lukic. Not just because they're more suited to their roles, but also in the freedom it allows the likes of, whether it be Smith Rowe, Pereira, and the 10s, just push that further forward and not have to worry about doing the dirty work in the middle of the park. But yeah, job done for sure. And as was mentioned in the 3 words review with Smith Rowe, just hopefully as a team, that's a sort of stepping stone to getting that winning feeling back.
Yeah, I mean, it was a fairly comfortable, as you say, second half. We got that goal straight after the break, and then when Adama got the second, you felt like there was no real way back for Leicester. They were very poor. I don't want to take anything away from the Fulham performance. I think we were thoroughly deserved of the victory. You know, Rowe van Nistelrooy said words to that effect in his post-match interview as well. But I mean, Yasmin, Leicester look pretty cursed, don't they? They were pretty hapless, I thought.
Yeah, I mean, what is it? 6 losses out of 8 games now, which is just, it's poor. And
7.
Is it 7? Sorry. Well, including yesterday, I guess.
Yeah.
Sorry, 7.
Yeah,
6 beforehand. And yeah, the mood is just toxic now. I mean, I didn't hear it. I had to be told myself. I was too involved in the Fulham away end to have heard the boos and the chanting from the Leicester fans sort of saying, you don't know what you're doing. When El Khanous got subbed off, he was the only one who I felt was threatening at all. And then he got subbed off, and then you could hear chants ringing out of, you don't know what you're doing. Yeah, it's sad because I think it was a bit of a mistake to sack Steve Cooper. Okay, he wasn't getting the results, but at least they were in the game. At no point were they in the game yesterday, really. And I agree with George to an extent, actually, that I don't think it was massively the performance which made the win yesterday so comfortable. It was how poor Leicester were and how they just didn't threaten us at all. At no point in the game did I think they were going to score, which, yeah, it's a shame to see. But I think that's where I'm just glad that we've got this win now, because I think if this had been another bottom of the table team that we hadn't managed to get 3 points from, I would have been really disappointed, and I would have felt that our season would have gone to then peter off, which I don't see. Fulham and Marco Silva's Fulham is not a team that I see petering off at the end of a season, especially this one, and especially with the loss to West Ham during the week. I would have been truly despairing if we'd not got 3 points at Leicester.
Yeah, I mean, looking at Leicester's form guide going into this game, I had like more X's than the top shelf of the newsagents. It was really like dire. 7 defeats in a row now. That is obviously a sorry state of affairs, and just thank our lucky stars that we're not in their position. Avais, I want to come on to, we've already spoken about Sander Berge and his incredible performance, and do feel free to chip in if you've got anything to add on that. But I just wanted to shout out Lukic, who I thought once again was superb in the middle for us. Also, a stat, that was Lukic's 9th yellow card of the season. He's top of the table, more than any other Prem player. And it's nice to see that he's continuing Zhao's legacy, you know? He's flying that flag, representing Fulham in that particular league table, and you just love to see it, don't you?
You've got to say that balance between Berge and Lukic is box office for us, because they both are capable, both sides of the ball. And what I particularly love about it is allowed Lukic to not only be a ball winner, but do it slightly higher up the pitch and then run with the ball. So if you look, when we reflect on the second goal in particular, it all starts with the Lukic breaking the lines with the ball running. And that's not something we've seen too often since Berge's injury. And it's just such a nice balance to have, because just like invoking the past with Palhinha, you've got Berge, who's got these unbelievably long legs that seem to get to every ball like they're magnets, and then you've got Lukic, who's picking up all the yellow cards. It's just a throwback to the last couple of seasons, and it's just superb. And the vibe before the game was that of a bit of trepidation until the lineup came out. And you see Sander Berge starting and everyone's sort of, their shoulders a bit more relaxed. You kind of feel like, okay, this is like one of our strongest lineups in a little while. That balance instantly looks so good. And although the first half was an absolute snooze fest, I think there were two elements to that. One was we were very nervous to start with. We nearly conceded a ridiculous own goal to Castagna within 3 or 4 minutes. That unbelievable Leno stop prevented that. But they stopped our very slow attacks rather easily down that left-hand side, and we were a tad too predictable. But once we found our feet in that second half, we were yes, as you rightly said, as that Leicester were quite dire. But I think we also contributed to that with a bit more pace and energy in that second half. And that was brought on by the sad substitution of Iwobi, which was really questioned and worried us in the stands. And obviously we found out later on the poor guy was playing with the flu. How bloody harsh is that? The poor guy was having to do like a warm-up before the game, like snotted and body aches. And Mark was like, run to the end of the pitch and back. Let's see if you're fit enough. And the poor guy's like, I guess I'll have to. But once Adama came on, I think it really transformed how we played, because we played with a bit more energy and pace and we stretched them. And that allowed some space in front of their defenders, and allowed us to create the goals and more. And it just that second half bodes well for hopefully how we can play a bit more against United and going forward.
Yeah, I mean, that going back to Iwobi, when the news came out from the press conference afterwards with Marco Silva that he had flu, like just imagine him like as the team's getting sort of called out in the dressing room, just sort of huddled in a blanket, shivering with a hot water bottle. And he's like, right, Iwobi, you started on the left. He's like, oh, do I have to, boss? Because someone put the kettle on. I need a Lemsip. Like, I assume that that's some kind of translation error, and it's really he just had a bad cold. Because like, if Iwobi had flu, I mean, Avais, you're a doctor, he shouldn't have been anywhere near that dressing room.
Not a chance. The poor guy should have been with a hot water bottle, sleeping, watching some TV. But to be fair to him, like if you saw him running around that first half, although no one was brilliant in that first half, he was the energetic player in that first half, and he hit the bar in that sort of half cross shot type thing. So if he had the flu, as you say, it had to have been a mistranslation, because the poor fella, if he had the flu, was put through the mill. It must have been a cold. But I mean, either way, he wasn't fully fit, and I think it was good that he came off. But I feel really bad that he had to start that game.
Yeah, fair play to the guy. You know, it speaks volumes for the man's athleticism that he can play 45 minutes of Premier League football feeling rather under the weather. Hats off, man.
What does that say about the Leicester right back, that he got skinned by a guy with the flu?
Yeah. Absolutely. Oh, God, yeah. Poor day at the office. Yasmin, it was a bit of a snooze fest first half, as we've alluded to, but we came flying out of the dugout for the second half. We got Emile Smith-Rowe, your favourite player, popping up with a goal. A very brave diving header, I would say. It was actually a really, really good goal from Fulham. The ball in from Rowe was perfect. He picked out Harry Wilson at the back right-hand post, I believe, who flicked it on, sort of over his head. Lukic nod, ESR diving header, 1-0. And I want to talk about ESR because you've been a bit of a critic of the former Arsenal playmaker, and I feel like not without its reasons as well. I might add, but I thought he played really well yesterday. When he was on the ball, he looked like he was approaching kind of match fitness, and there was lots of sort of quick, clever link-up play that you see. He always had that kind of languid style with ESR that you can see him sort of like just sort of lazily walking around, and it can maybe come across as lack of sort of work rate, but arguably he gets in the positions. And yeah, as I said, I thought he had a good showing yesterday. What was your take on him?
Yeah, I'm more than happy to concede today to a good performance yesterday. I mean, I'm always happy to concede to my strong opinions. So yeah, I'm happy, because walking into the ground, I looked at the lineup and thought, oh no, I quite like Lukic, Berger and Pereira. I think that's a great little trio. And when I saw ESR was there, my heart dropped a little bit. But I'm glad I was wrong. Very, very glad I was wrong, because it is brave of him to have gone in for that header. And that's exactly what I was complaining about before, in that he wasn't being brave and he was frustrating me. And yeah, I was despairing with him, and he proved me very wrong. And I'm happy to say that. And it was a really important goal. It was believe it or not, a goal soon after the half time, which we really needed and don't do very often. So yeah, very, very, very happy about that. I mean, it's a great ball over from Jimenez in the first place over to Wilson. Wilson controls it really, really well, keeps the ball in play. Lukic then manages to keep it in play for ESR to then go flying in. I mean, I didn't realise that if he's telling the truth on Match of the Day, I didn't realise that was his first Premier League header, which is not surprising. But yeah, very happy with that. I agree. I think he was playing a lot better yesterday. Happy to get into those spaces in the centre of the pitch. There was a nice little chance he had in the second half, I think it was, with a nice little link up with Wilson, which was he didn't manage to get first half with Wilson, which he didn't manage to get away. I was very happy to see him improve today.
Did you see his celebration where he had his hands on his knees? Do we think he was a bit emotional? There's a question online about whether that goal meant a lot to him personally, and whether this was his Muniz-Burnley moment with some tears, really, because he was finally getting that point where he scored a goal that could hopefully kick him on. Because I think he probably felt the pressure that the fans are rightly putting on him to a degree, and hopefully this is a moment from which he can then kick on and get some confidence. And for me, I think he needs just that confidence in a position that he plays in consistently and a position that he's comfortable with, which is that position behind the striker. I think for a long time with that imbalanced midfield, he's been asked to do a lot that he's not accustomed to. And I think that's where he's stifled his own skills. But I would still say, although he showed for the ball a lot more, that was all in the second half. I still think in the first half, he was a bit more absent than I wanted him to be. He did this thing that Jack Collins said on Thursday that's really opened my eyes to how he sometimes behaves, is that he'll get the ball, he'll pass it simply, he'll run the other side of the defender and almost hide behind the defender and block his own channel to receive the ball again. And I felt he still did that in the first half. And in the break, Adama was warming up and we all assumed, I certainly assumed it was potentially for Emile to come off, until obviously we've heard about Iwobi's bedridden illness. And I'm glad it wasn't him that came off, because when he did that goal, I think he then became so much more confident in that second half. And yeah, I'm all for it. I really hope this is him kicking on, because I think if he then shows a bit more of himself like he's did at the beginning of the season now, I think we can finally start seeing that £30 million player that we all hoped he would be.
I think I also saw in the celebration. Sorry, George. Go on.
No, go ahead, mate.
I think you also saw in the celebrations, I've never seen him tap our badge before. That seemed to be a new one. And you had each individual Fulham player going up to him and sort of shaking his head, sort of we know that's in there. This is your moment to kick on. They all look genuinely buzzing for him. So as much as I think some of the fan base sometimes question whether he wants to be here, and I think that's come from the summer where it seemed like quite a big deal for him to be leaving Arsenal. I don't think that was a Fulham thing. I think it was just leaving Arsenal thing. But yeah, as we say, it did look a bit emotional. He was tapping the badge. And yeah, just seeing the whole team go over to him like that, I think it shows that whether it be at Motspur Park, whether it be during and after games, there must have been a frustration inside him that he's not getting the best of himself, just like there's a frustration from us that we're not seeing the best of him. And yeah, maybe sometimes we forget they're humans too, who just want to perform at their best level. So very happy for him.
Yeah, I agree with you there, George. We're all obviously behind him and we all want him to seem happy and playing his best football, because there's an undeniable talent there, and I'm glad we got to see some of that talent on display yesterday. So yeah, I think it's just with ESR, I think it's just a simple case of getting more minutes, regaining his confidence and getting back to full match fitness. That's the thing with him, is that it had seemed previously that maybe he was just lacking that kind of game time and getting into his rhythm, and it was just little performances were perhaps a little bit disjointed. But I've got no doubt that with some minutes under his belt, he'll really kick on and become a key player for us. So obviously Emile Smith-Rowe put us one ahead, and then, as I alluded to in the introduction, our Dench Matador Adama Traore put us 2-0 up. He'd come on obviously for Iwobi, who was struggling with the flu, and it was a really good finish. We've all got memories of Tuesday, that chance that fell to him in the dying stages, that he just ballooned into the Thames, into the canals in Hackney Wick. And we were thinking, how on earth has he managed that? But then, and there's always been a sort of a criticism of Adama, like his end product is finishing. But Avais, it was a beautiful goal to put us 2-0 up and put the game out of reach for Leicester, really.
It was so surprising to see him so composed so soon after what was a massive miss. And it was all credit to him. I legitimately think him being on the pitch changed the game in that second half. Although it wasn't him necessarily that was the player to change the game, but just his presence, like we always allude to, just scares the living daylights out of players. And it pushed them back and allowed us to have so much more freedom. And yeah, that goal was superb. We won the ball in the middle from Berge. Lukic takes it on, runs 10-15 yards unchallenged across to Emile, across to Harry Wilson, and he did like a little, like, I don't know, toe punt, sort of knuckleball type ball across completely over the top of the entire defence. And I did not expect a first time in-step volley finish into the corner, so coolly done by what do you call him, the hench? What? It's such a cool nickname.
The Dench Matador.
The Dench Matador. Oh no, that's class. Lethal Bizzle as he is, what an absolute class finish that was. And I wasn't expecting, and it kind of was relatively similar to his goal against Ipswich, although granted that wasn't a volley. It was a similar first time smash into the goal, and it's very much needed. I think we were a little bit edgy that 1-0 is never a good comfortable lead, and that second goal absolutely killed that game. So I'm really pleased that the two people that scored are the two that were, so we get a bit of confidence in them, let them feel the love again. And there was nothing greater than being able to chant Adama Traore's name again in the stands in a positive sense.
Yeah, it was just such a skillful finish. He's shot it before the keeper has even had a chance to adjust his footing, and he could just straight back across the face. I will say, George, it was some pretty woeful defending from Leicester City, because I know he takes it well, he takes the first time, and I think even if he had a man on him, it still would have found the goal. But I mean, he's completely unmarked there.
Yeah, I mean, Leicester fans have condoned their defending all season. I always quite rated James Justin, but some of the stick he's been getting this season is worrying, considering I once thought he might be an England international. As we've alluded to, it's a bit worrying that Iwobi in his state had any joy against him on that side. And then, the centre-back pairing of Vestergaard and Faz. I mean, a couple of years ago when Leicester went down, I thought Wout Faz was the worst Premier League centre-back I'd ever seen. So the fact that that's the same pairing as a couple of years ago is genuinely worrying for them. But I can't disagree with any of the words on Adama. I thought it was a really good finish. I did think, actually, for most of the 45 minutes he played, he looked quite unconfident, which didn't really match his finish. Like, he was turning back and playing the ball to Castagna very frequently when you're sort of used to him either pinning the ball down the right-hand side and chasing it ahead of his full-back, or putting in that kind of lofted cross to the back post. But ultimately, he got the goal which mattered most. And just a word on Harry Wilson too. It was a beautiful cross, and we've alluded to his touch and his delivery to get it back into Lukic and then Smith Rowe for the first goal. I don't think that happens at the start of the season when he's making those 30-minute cameos, where he just wasn't having the same impact he's having on the game now. And I think the same can be said of Iwobi at West Ham, where neither Iwobi that game or Wilson at the King Power, it wasn't this sort of 9 out of 10 showing where they were a threat for 90 minutes. They weren't. But that confidence in their game means that as forward players, they have those moments in them to create when not much else is coming from them. I just think that confidence right now, I thought we should have sold him at the start of the season. I genuinely thought that he'd kind of reached a peak of where he was as a player. I thought if he's only going to get 10 to 20 minutes off the bench, which is going to result in one 25-yard shot over the bar, then there's not really any point. But this last 2 months, he's really grabbed that opportunity, and you're seeing that confidence now where in any given moment from him, it will be hopefully Smith Rowe as well, that those attacking players have the confidence in those moments to do very special things.
You got to say that time against Birmingham and Preston were quite low times for him and Harrison Reed particularly. And you thought, oh yeah, the old guard has to be moved on. But I think certainly Harry, obviously with his cameos and the moments against Brentford that will live in folklore forever, have really transformed his confidence and generally his career with Fulham for the foreseeable, because he's now found himself a starter, rightfully so. We've been screaming out for it, and he's really cemented that. Although he's not spectacular consistently in those 90 minutes, when we need him to be, he's been clutch. Or he's doing moments like he did yesterday where he's keeping the ball alive, flicking it into a dangerous space, from which we then score with 2 more touches. So I really feel like he's where Adama shone at the beginning of the season, he's now taking this middle part of the season as his own. And it's really interesting to see how the rest of the season goes, because I think that they're both hopefully now going to kick on and we can get some proper competition. And now with Reece Nelson coming back as well, maybe get Iwobi some time off the pitch when need be, because I think I felt really bad that he played against Watford. I felt like if anyone needs a rest, it's him. And our injuries coming back at a good time, certainly with obviously Berge coming back into this game. It's a good time, and hopefully we can delve into the market and get some support for certain areas on the pitch. And I just think a win like this just breeds confidence, like Yaz was saying, and it hopefully means we can look upwards rather than sideways on the table.
And I think what you say there about Wilson and Reed, I think it was after, I don't know if it was the Preston game, I'm not sure with my memory. A lot of fans there kind of made their mind up on Cairney as well. And at the time I was like, no, not at all. And I think yesterday proved that you talk about Wilson finding his role in this team now as the starter. I think Tom Cairney's found his role in this team perfectly off the bench. He might not have the legs for the 90 minutes, but the impact he can have on a game. I thought yesterday he was so good off the bench. With the game at 1-0 when he comes on, the control he brought to the team. Smith Rowe had a go. He didn't do badly, as we've said, but the control brought by Cairney, the way he just took a touch, played it to the flank, to Adama. Leicester was slowly putting more on us, not much, but they were putting more on us. So to have that control to get us going on the counter was so important. I just think the situational awareness, obviously that comes with experience and age, but it was so clever the way he manipulated the ball for that final 20 minutes. And I just think had that been a Pereira or a Smith Rowe without that guys, that it might not have been as comfortable a victory as it turned out to be. And it's just, you just want the same for the likes of Harrison Reed now to kind of find that space in the squad. Because I understand that people might see players as championship players. And I think me and you, Avais, we've been two of the ones that have really pushed the need for this club to evolve at times. But that doesn't mean that certain players don't have a role in this squad. And I think when you look how important this double pivot is to bringing balance to the midfield, and the fact that with 12 days to go of the transfer window, there's been literally no rumours of a number 6 coming in. You've got to think that a player like Harrison Reed, who has the legs, knows the club, and I think very importantly can bring a sense of leadership to a team lacking it at the moment. I've been a very big on saying I think the mentality of this team and the way we've dropped points at times is due to poor leadership. We've lost Tim Ream, Bobby Reed, Mitrovic, Pellegrini in recent times. Cairney's not starting many games. We don't often have that leadership on the pitch, so there's definitely still a role for Harrison Reed to play at the moment too.
Yeah, I just want to echo your points on Tom Cairney, George, because I thought it was such a cultured cameo from our club captain. He really, I think that was the substitution which really put the game to bed and got us over the line, because he just completely, like a sort of what's the name of those TikToky things that help people keep time?
Metronome.
Like a metronome in the middle of the field, just dictating play, slowing everything down, and you're just like, we're in safe, capable hands right now. And
he did genuinely almost make me smile to the point of tears at full time when he handed a shirt to the crowd, and then he's running away from the away end, giving it the old and turning around and giving us our little own version of the Jurgen Klopp fist pump. Bless him, man.
I thought you were going to talk about his last-minute free kick and everyone just desperate for that to hit the top bins.
I was certain that was going in. I was
so
on
excited.
such a high at that point. I thought this is going to be the cherry on the top, but no. I think we thought it with Ream and Mitrovic, and ultimately we've moved on. But I've grown up with that man, and I just cannot imagine this football club without Tom Cairney. It scares me for the day when he departs.
Yeah,
for me, it's more about
the day that he does depart, I mean, at least we'll have his testimonial to look forward to, which will be one hell of a party, I'm sure. As we're going to... It's a thing that we've been very guilty of on Fulhamish, and I think it's like representative of the wider fan base by and large, is that we have a good win and we're all talking about Europe, and then we have a bad defeat and we're like, that's it for Europe this year. And it's just swings from one side to the other. Where are you currently on this never-ending kind of like pendulum? Where are you feeling right now after the win yesterday?
You're making the top 4.
Yeah, football fans are so fickle, but it's great. I mean, that is what football's about. I mean, what's the point of living if you can't dream, Jack Kelly? So I'm not sure where I am, to be honest. I think that's probably where Leicester's left me. I think after West Ham, it was so tipping on the point of complete disappointment, and I would have given up. But Leicester's given me that slice of hope that I feel like we can go on and not peter out towards the end of the season. That's what would have disappointed me the most, as I said earlier. FA Cup, we've got that, to look forward to. It could be quite a similar season to last season, and that we go on a bit of a cup run, and that's what saves our season and sticks out. To be honest, though, I'm already really happy. We've got Chelsea win away. We've got Brentford win. Like we've got. You were saying earlier, George, that away wins come few and far between, but I was thinking back. We've got points from Liverpool, Spurs, Chelsea, Palace, Forest. All of those have been away, and those are all great points to have picked up. And I'm really happy already with it. That's where my head is at the moment. And if we can continue on getting lovely results like that towards the end of the season, that would be amazing. We've still got like City at home. That could be quite fun, I think. I'm
Man U at home as well. That'll be a fun one.
Yeah, exactly. With Man United coming up so soon, it could be a perfect opportunity to become stable again and push to be up. I'd like to be just above. I'd like to be just above 10th. I'd love to push a little bit further up to 7th or 6th or something like that. That would be amazing. But I mean, I do think Marco Silva's Fulham is ambitious, so I'm seeing it.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I said earlier that Fulham away wins are not something to be taken for granted. I remember a time where we were lucky if we got one away win all season.
Yeah.
Like, before, in the first Premier League era, we were notoriously bad away from home. But yeah, I think it's all right to still have a little bit of hope. I'm saying it very quietly. Before we wrap up this half, just a few other honourable mentions. I wanted to give a shout out to Bernd Leno, who I thought was brilliant. Clean sheet, obviously, made some important saves, and it was great to see him with a solid, calm, assured performance after a little bit of a wobble against West Ham. So that was very pleased to see. And also, I just wanted to give a little nod to the group who travelled up to Leicester on the train, who took the opportunity to have a photo with some rather classy bottle of Veuve Clicquot and a platter of oysters up on the train. We've had the cheese board before, and this is I think taking it up a notch. And I have to say, hats off to you, absolutely quality. I love it, and obviously it boiled a large vat of piss on social media as well. A lot of football fans saying that the game is gone, but I mean, I think it brought a wry smile to the face of a lot of Fulham fans, And
there's nothing better than playing into. There's nothing better than playing into that role of being the team that has cheese boards and now oysters. Who's going to match that? Who's going to be able to top anything close to that? That's unreal.
I was thinking that. You can't go anything higher. Like a bottle of.
What are you going to get? Caviar?
I feel like when we've done like cheese balls and whatnot, a few weeks later you see other clubs replicating it with like cheese and wine, and then Fulham turn up the next week with oysters. No one does it like we do.
So they made a cheese board branded with Fulham's branding and stuff, right? Are they going to have like an oyster chucker next with like a FFC written on it? I'd buy one of those. I don't even eat oysters. I'd buy one of those. It'd be absolute class. If we're talking about brilliant honourable mentions and sort of banter, I also want to add about this bloody drummer that was in the stadium, right? So you go to these kind of level of teams where, to be fair to them, they're trying to create some atmosphere because it's, these kind of levels of teams don't have the best, and fair play. But this drummer, right? I just think about him as a person. He comes to these games, he's like, I'm gonna drum and everyone's gonna sing along. And every game he must get those wanker chants that we were doing at him. He must get that every home game. So imagine when he goes home and it's like his partner's like, oh, how's the game? Was it all right? He's like, yeah, it's good. Why are you looking so sad? Oh, this is, every time I go, they call me a wanker. I don't get it. So the poor guy must be a wanker. Like, he's a wanker every other week. The poor fella. At what stage do you give up drumming when all you're going to get is people rinsing you? Because he's so close to us. All we ever do is we use his drum, to start our own chants, and then we ask him why he's a wanker. The poor guy. I just feel so bad for that role. It can't be.
I think
fun.
he knows what he's signing up for.
Especially like given.
Avais, you're too nice to be a British football fan, my guy.
No, don't get me wrong. I was calling him a wanker like the rest of us, but I just felt I was just reflecting on what he must feel like when he goes home, and just like that sadness in his eyes, even though he's like, it was a good day.
Yeah,
you could just tell he must be really sad.
I think Leicester City's football at the moment are contributing a large part to whatever sort of bad mood he's in when he gets home. I think.
Yeah, true.
I think the fact that Fulham fans calling him a wanker is merely consequential.
Probably not up there.
Yeah.
I think he'll live.
The other thing I found really funny was when they did the substitutions and they were chanting, "You don't know what you're doing" at Ruud van Nistelrooy. I love the fact that we joined in that chant. I had so much fun also chanting that he didn't know what he was doing. That brought a tear to my eye. It was so funny.
Yeah, I mean it's
the banter is great.
You kind of like I was watching it through I was watching it at home and you hear the chants coming through. It sounded so toxic, and you kind of like you're grateful that the club is in such a good position right now. We're having a lot of fun. We've already got beautiful memories that will last with us forever this season to in the bank, and we've got like potentially more to come. So yeah, it puts everything into perspective when you see a club in that state and just the toxicity.
I just want to build on what Avais has said about the nature of sort of football fans and coming together and making battles, just with a story from yesterday on my journey home, which Avais will have already seen in the Telegraph. I was on the way back up to Manchester. And I've seen this guy in a security jacket. Something right. I'll get my ticket ready because I'm aware that I'm around a lot of rowdy football fans. And suddenly you see, hang on, this security man on the train's got a Stone Island badge. He's carrying a bottle of gin in his hand, drinking it by the bottle, and he's saying, "Tickets, please." I'm like, hang on, this sounds fishy. Turns out it's a Stoke City fan who, along the journey, has nicked a train security's got a jacket, is trying to throw people off the train, and you had a load of Stockport and Forest Green and Birmingham and Blackburn fans all screaming, "Who the fuck is that in the high vis?" And I was just smiling from ear to ear. You go to football, you look at someone at the ground in the home end, you give it is this a library, you call them a wanker, but that's what supporting a football club's about. It's going up and down the country with your mates, with other football fans and having a laugh and a drink. And yesterday was one of my favourite days for a long time. Just didn't stop smiling all day. It was super.
Yeah, that's what it's all about. Calling the drummer a wanker, stealing a jacket from a Network Rail employee, posing as a ticket guard, and just having a right old laugh. That's what it's all about. On that note, I think we'll wrap up part one, but we will be back with some of your questions. Welcome back to part two of the Fulhamish podcast. George Cooper here. I'm joined by Avais Malik, George Rossiter and Yasmin Mills. We got some wonderful questions. I've taken them from X and Instagram today. It's been some fun ones, like it's good because we've got a mix of like club affairs, thoughts for the future, and then some just like really silly kind of like hypotheticals, which we'll end with. So we'll start with this one from Jason. Yaz, I'll throw this to you, who asks, yesterday we had 17 shots and 2 goals. When are we buying a striker? Now, I thought Rowe played pretty well yesterday. I mentioned earlier, obviously, the beautiful ball that he put in for our opener. We got his usual tenacious, running everything down, and like some very sort of like languid skill on show as well. I don't think he was too bad. And I think like 17 shots, 2 goals isn't all that uncommon generally for like a Premier League game. I don't think that's like necessarily a warning sign that our strikers are misfiring. However, I do think that this January, I know we've not been linked with anyone. There's not really many sort of like rumours circling, but I wouldn't necessarily be sad to see another striker being brought in. I know I've said it time and time again, but I do genuinely think that Evan Ferguson could be the missing piece of the puzzle, and he is available. Maybe I'm wishful thinking and it's never going to happen. Probably not going to happen, but I would certainly welcome it. Where do you stand on this whole do we need to bring a striker in debate? Because I've quite liked it in recent games when we've seen Rodrigo Muniz and Rowe both play. And Farrell did an article on the Fulhamish website about the genius way in which Marco's getting the best out of these two strikers and the way that we're changing it up and occasionally playing them together. And I know I'm saying that I wouldn't, turn necessarily bringing another option in. I wouldn't be sad to see us lead the line with those two for the rest of the season, unchallenged. But I just wondered what your take on it was.
Yeah, I'm happy with Jimenez. I'm not calling out for a striker, to be honest, from my end. I quite like the little Jimenez and Muniz by the end, coming on at the end of the game to see it out. I do quite like that. Also, I think Muniz doesn't improve if he doesn't see himself ever getting in the starting lineup. That's so important. Like, if he is just on the edge of getting in above Jimenez, he ups his game. And I think that's really important. Bringing in another striker eliminates Muniz. And I think I'd be quite sad to see that happen. I mean, obviously, he missed a chance in the second half. We were already pretty comfortable by then, but possibly there's something to be said for that. I would always put Jimenez above Muniz for that exact reason. But I think Jimenez's match awareness and his skill and his lovely little link-ups with Wilson, I'm more than happy with that, and I'm not demanding a striker in particular. Not at all for me.
Yeah, that the miss that Muniz made, I think it was like the 85th minute. It was quite late on, wasn't it? But the ball in from Lukic to create that chance is absolutely world class, and yes, he arguably could have scored, but I mean, just the ball. I watched it back this morning. I was like, oh my God, like the vision and the execution of that ball. And like, you don't normally think of Lukic as a sort of like whip a ball in kind of player, but he's got it all, man. Like he's a really, really classy footballer. Yeah, I agree with you, Yaz. I'm happy with Raul and Muniz, and they're just like both such likable characters. And I'm not. I wouldn't be disappointed if we didn't bring anyone in. Let's just put it that way. We got a few questions here on this next subject I'm going to come on to. I'm going to throw it to you, Avais. But essentially, a few people were pointing out some sort of interesting factors about Adama Traore's body language. So Philip asked, why didn't Adama celebrate with the fans, do you think, after his goal, or I guess like after the game? Joe also pitched in and said, I know he scored, but Adama looked lazy and uninterested. Is this his last season? And Tom says something similar. He says, is Adama popular in the dressing room? His body language always seems off. Now, obviously, I can't speak to what he's like in the dressing room. Although from the little Instagram sort of stories that we see from Iwobi, he seems to be like, they call him Uncle Adama, don't they? Like I think they kind of tease him for being this sort of like grumpy, sort of like curmudgeonly kind of like guy who's a bit older but like secretly sort of like loves them. You know, like the grumpy uncle at Christmas who's just like, you guys. And I think it's just his personality. He just seems quite kind of like cool and aloof, and maybe just that can at time come across as uninterested. And there's a lot of circulation going around, like, he was sort of linked to a move to Saudi, and people are saying, is this his last year? Is he interested? Personally, I don't read too much into it. I think it's just his personality. I think he's just kind of like a little bit like that. And I don't know. I think like even when he was at Wolves and Middlesbrough, I don't know whether we ever saw him being like this sort of animated, badge tapping passion merchant that I think, the fans kind of like want him to be. But I don't know. I just wondered where you stood with it, Avais. Did you pick up on this sort of body language, and what do you think about it?
I mean, I fully agree with you in terms of the social media aspect of it. He comes across as the Uncle Adama who is in on the joke, but pretends like he's not, but secretly loves it, like you say. I fully see that. And there are clips from the Park Life videos where he actually instigates some of the jokes. So I do think he's loved in the dressing room. I'm not overly worried about that. And On the pitch, it was interesting in the quick take. Jack Kelly was saying that it looked like Adama didn't know what his role was initially when he first came on the pitch, and maybe that was why he was a bit muted with his running with the ball and maybe going back to Castagna so much, because he wasn't quite sure what he was supposed to be, what he was asked to do. But I think he grew into the game gradually, and when he scores, I don't think he is the big as you say, fist to the chest pumping kind of celebrator. I think he is just like a really chill guy. And as I say, I don't really read into it too much. And to be honest with you, it's all we have though, is like reading into their body language from what we perceive of them on the pitch for 90 minutes or 45 in his case. So I think it's really hard to judge, and I think it's quick and easy for us to be Inspector Gadget on Twitter and stuff to worry about certain players. I think it's going to play out how it does in the scenes behind, and we'll never know. And I like, for the moment, I really enjoy him coming on and being the cameo winger that scares the life out of people, and I think we enjoy it whilst it lasts. And if he moves on to Turkey or Saudi at the end of the season, then fair play will replace him. But if he stays, I think we'll be equally happy. I think it's tough to speculate because we really have no idea. So we're kind of clutching at sort of body language straws. But I mean, I will miss him on social media. I'll say that much.
Yeah, you've got to be careful clutching onto those body language straws. Can often be misleading. But yeah, I have to say, like, I do just, and I feel like I speak for everyone here, I do just really want the moment where Adama Traore scores an absolute banger, stands triumphantly in front of the Hammersmith end and just does a big old muscle flex. Yeah. Like, that would go off, like last minute winner or something like that. Like, I pray for that moment. That would top the season off for me. I'd be like, okay, no matter what happens from now on, I'm happy. But yeah, I mean, I love Adama Traore. I love him in this side. I just think he's so exciting. I always get that feeling when he comes on, like, yes, come on, let's go. And you need players like that, you know. It's like, it's what football's all about. And yeah, I'm not reading too much into it, to be honest. We got a fun one here. I'm gonna throw it to all of you, but I'll start with you, George, from Samuel C. Stone, who asks a hypothetical question, which is my favourite kind of question on Fulhamish. He says, if we had no recognised fit striker, who would play up front? Now, we've got a few options here, and I mean, it is bringing slight PTSD back from the Caballero up front from the Scott Parker era. But if Rowe and Muniz were injured, who would you want to see up front? And I do apologise if I'm overlooking any obvious choices from the academy. I'm talking
Vinicius,
like, you know,
Carlos Vinicius.
Yeah, I mean, let's say Carlos Vinicius. let's say he's injured as well.
Poor guy.
Okay, well, in this theoretical world, is Reece Nelson back from injury?
Yeah. So
okay, right. Reece Nelson. In that case, I see three options, which are one, Reece Nelson, because off the top of my head, of our wingers, if there was one of them bearing down on goal, I think from a central position, he's maybe the one I'd have most confidence in. I don't know. I don't think I'd see Wilson as a number 9. In terms of just running the channels, terrorising defenders, you know, occupying spaces, I think Adama's the obvious one, maybe. But I don't think you'd ever see it happen, but I think the actual answer is Callum Osmond, because his form in the Premier League 2, his form in the Premier League International Cup, the amount of goals he's scoring for our under-21s at the moment, how Marshall Goddo's getting on the bench, no disrespect to Goddo, but how he gets on the bench over Callum Osmond with the form he's in is beyond me, because that boy is an absolute star at the moment, the form he's showing for the academy setup. But I can't see Marco Silva ever doing that, so I'll go Adama, just because that sounds like really fun chaos to me.
Avais, who are you going for?
I'll go with a serious answer and a stupid answer. My serious answer would be Iwobi, just to say someone who hasn't been mentioned. So I think talking about running down the channels and having a good finish, I wouldn't hate on him being central and a bit higher up. He's also strong enough to hold off centre backs. But my stupid answer, talking about centre backs, would be Issa Diop, because he's tall and strong. And if you see how he takes a penalty, I wonder what he's like with like open play shots. So I'd go Issa Diop.
Do you know who could actually be a really good answer? Is if you've got players in and around this striker, if we think back 6 or 7 years to the level of anticipation and the football brain to get in the right position shown by Ryan Sessegnon, that could be an idea.
Yeah, but is he strong enough to like hold off like a couple of centre backs?
He didn't need to be strong when he was 17. He got like 16 goals or something in a season just because he was in the right position all the time.
Yeah.
I think we get to see Ryan Sessegnon play more often, which is the best.
I think the thing with Sessegnon is, and his attacking positioning was superb. Obviously, that year that he made his name, but he scored most of his goals running in from the wing. He would just he would pop up out of nowhere. And I would argue maybe if he is the target man, whether that would quite translate. But I mean, he's strong, man. Like against Watford, he held off like 3 or 4 challenges with a really, really good run. And
true.
I mean, it's not the craziest shout. Just quickly to wrap up, Yaz, who are you going for?
Just to say something different. And this is a theoretical world, so I don't believe this would actually happen, obviously. But let's go Harry Wilson, who put the ball in the back of the Brentford and Chelsea net. Nice and simple.
There we go.
Who's done it for us?
George, what about you? Who would you pick?
Who would I put up top? I think I think Adama. Just put him up top. Let's make some noise. But I like the Iwobi shout. I think he would probably be the most kind of like composed. But then I feel like we'd miss his output elsewhere. I'm trying to think if there's any other like real wild cards. Also,
no calls for Tom Wingate, top scorer in an under-18 tournament in Germany last week. No,
they're too young for the the centre back pairing of Harry Maguire and whatever Euro and Delict combination.
Mate, wild card. They won't know how to play it.
I still think Issa Diop's the best shout. I think he's tall. He wins the ball. He's got a right foot on him. And the chaos of him being in there, because you might miss pass in the box in the attacking box finally rather than the defensive box, but he might knock one in top bins. You never know. I think that chaos is what we need. Him, Adama, and Iwobi as a front three would be mental.
That would really make Fulham vibes FC. That would 100%.
Yeah,
I feel like we have seen him get like carted up front in like the dying state. Have I made that up? I seem to recall like him getting pushed up if we're chasing like a last minute kind of thing. So
I feel like it was Southampton. I feel like at Southampton we were pushing everyone we could up, and I feel like he was one of the ones that was asked to be a makeshift striker.
Yeah, just on this note, actually, I'm gonna chuck in a wild card of my own. So this happened on Saturday as well, and it's been happening quite a lot. You'll just see Calvin Bassey just randomly pop up in the box, and you're like, "Where have you come from, lad?"
Yeah,
and they were like, "Have a shot." He came very close to scoring yesterday.
Yeah,
and he's come close quite a few times, and it will inevitably sort of like hit it just wide with a real like centre back shot, like that kind of like power that you get, but it's like no finesse on it whatsoever. It's just like kick the ball as hard as you can, and it will sort of like bounce out, and then he'll just sprint back to fill his position. But yeah, Calvin Bassey, you're like, oh, careful, lad, you might get a nosebleed up there. But he's been popping up like quite a lot. It seems to be something that Marco's given him license to do. So yeah, maybe stick Bassey.
Do you remember when Sammy was hoping that Bert Leno would be a striker?
Where was this?
Oh God, I've got to go look back in the archives.
I believe his point he was making was that if you'd like made all the subs or something and a player got injured,
it was the Anderson point.
You put him in because Anderson came off injured, which left us with 10 men. And Sammy's point was along the lines of put Anderson in goal, so you've not got 10 men, put Leno up front, so that he can just cause mayhem, and we've still got some sort of structure in between Leno up front and Anderson in goal.
Well, I changed my point. I think Leno is my answer.
Oh, we digress. Anyway, this is what I love, these hypotheticals that we get like really into the granular detail here, and like situations that we've sort of like created. But it's all good fun. It's all good fun. So I think on that note, we can just about wrap up this podcast. The only thing that we've got left to do is to put a name on it. We had some really good 3-word reviews today, so you've got
job now.
Down the job is not good enough, I'm afraid. Even though Aaron's wonderful mind came up with it, I'm not going to quite pick it. I think I'm going to go with James Wilson's Leicester Worry About. I really like that.
Yeah, that's very clever. That would be my choice as well, Avais. So well picked. And thanks to everyone who got in touch with the 3-word reviews. We'll be back this week with the usual Thursday Club lineup from our new studio, which is looking very swish. If you want to have a look at this week's Thursday Club, it was recorded. So, got that to look forward to. Hope everyone has a wonderful week, and we'll see you very soon. Come on, you Whites.
You Whites.